A question I get asked often, and a situation that I come in contact with myself. If a patient has two coverages, but they don't know which one's primary, you've got to have the patient, and I've literally had a patient stand in my office or sit in my office and call both coverages. If neither coverage knows about each other, then they're both going to pay as primary, and you're going to have too much money and somebody's going to be retracting. So if a patient presents you with two commercial cards, say a Blue Cross and United Healthcare, and they don't know which one's primary. And when you go to verify their benefit or their eligibility and it says no other payer on file and they show primary payer, you need to have patient call right then and there before they're seen. Don't even let the nurse know that they're ready to be taken back. Have them call their insurance company and verify which one is primary and which one is secondary, because at that time they're also notifying the both coverages of each other to know if they're going to do a coordination of benefits, which a coordination of benefits is basically stating that yes, the secondary will pay whatever the primary doesn't. If they don't do a coordination of benefits, then most likely they're going to require out-of-pocket fulfillment even as a secondary. So say primary has a $500 deductible and they put the allowable charges, say it's 300 something, 350 to the patient responsibility, apply towards deductible, and you file that claim to the secondary, and the secondary gets it, and if they know about it, but they say, yes, we know about it, but we still have an out-of-pocket fulfillment, they process the claim, and it's also put towards their deductible. So a patient can have two coverages. I've even seen a patient have three coverages and still have to pay out of pocket because every coverage required an out-of-pocket fulfillment. Now, if the coverages say, we'll do a coordination of benefits, that means they will pay whatever the primary did not. Doesn't matter if they have a deductible or not. They're just going to do a COB. They're acknowledging they are the secondary payer. Now, if when the patient contacts both of the payers, oftentimes, more often than not, whoever was primary or whoever was effective first. So if she has coverage through herself and gets her husband puts her on, his coverage is secondary automatically. Typically, whoever has the insurance is usually their primary and the spouse is secondary, unless the spouse's policy was primary before the patient got her own coverage. There's a couple of different scenarios. Each insurance company handles it differently. I've heard of them using the birthday rule. If they became effective at the same time, one of two things will happen. I've seen them use the birthday rule of whose ever birthday comes first. Oddest thing I'd ever heard of. Second, normally, if two coverages are effective at the same time, the patient's coverage would be first and the spouse's coverage would be secondary. Now, the only difference would be to make sure that if both the spouse and the patient are on, that both coverages, if they flip-flop those benefits. But typically, when you apply for an insurance and they ask if you have any other insurance, then yes, then you've got to let them know. But if they didn't, which people do, they need to call immediately. So that way, whenever you go to file your claim, you file it to the appropriate primary payer and you're not having to deal with payments being retracted, having to turn around and refile to the other carrier and just putting things off. It just makes it so much easier. Now, if a patient has, let's say, obviously we all know that Medicaid goes secondary to any coverage. The thought process of knowing which would go, okay, so here's a good example. If a patient has Medicare, if they're not 65, they're going to be on a replacement, which means Medicaid would be secondary, no matter what. I'm thinking of other scenarios, but I think I'm going to lump those into another video. So this will cover the topic of two commercial coverages. If you go to verify their benefits and eligibility and they do not show each other on file and they show each other's primary, Do not let the patient be seen without them calling their insurance companies and notifying each other. That way they don't pay as primary, you don't get money taken away, and they can decide if coordination of benefits is going to be taken, which means potential of the patient having an out of pocket, versus coordination of benefits and the secondary automatically paying what the primary doesn't.